Hi, everybody. Mitch Tannenbaum here. Thanks for joining me today. This is this week's security news update. In the security and privacy alert section, apparently Apple fans are being bombed by password reset requests. Right now, at least for the moment, this appears to be a targeted attack. Whether, as people learn about it, the bad guys that is, whether it'll become more than a targeted attack is unclear. But apparently, the way Apple has implemented this password reset function, users are required to manually clear all of the requests. And some people are reporting that they are receiving hundreds of these requests. One user even claims that they got a call spoofing Apple's tech support caller ID, which is not that hard to do. And when the recipient of the call asked the Apple person to go, or the supposed Apple person, right, to go off and verify information about the victim, the fake Appler was able to do that, which made him even more nervous. The good news is that he did not reset the password and let the guy in, so that's a good thing. But until Apple fixes this, the best thing to do is make sure your users are aware of what's going on. Microsoft has been an earlier victim to this, so Apple is just kind of catching up, if you will. I'm not sure that I would necessarily call that opportunistic catching up, but that's what's happening. And until they fix it, all you can do is tell users to beware. Also, chatbots are helping hackers, but not in the way you might think. So in this particular attack, users ask a large language model to say, I'm looking for a library that does X, Y, Z. And the chatbot hallucinates and goes off and gives you the name of a library. Of course, that library doesn't exist because that's sort of the nature of hallucinations. However, if the bad guys are trolling the large language models, asking the same or similar questions, and they go off and create a fake library that matches whatever the hallucination is, then they could go create a library which functionally looks like what it is you think it's supposed to do, but in reality, kind of does a little extra in addition to what it's supposed to do. So they said that Google's Gemini hallucinated package names 64% of the time, which is a pretty large number, and ChatGPT did better, only giving bogus names 25% of the time. Still, a quarter of the time is a lot, but more importantly, different large language models sometimes hallucinated with the same package name. Likely that's because they use the same training data. But if the hackers get there first, then, when the developer goes off and searches for this package name, they'll find it. In the reference area, CISA and NSA have released a bunch of cheat sheets, which are pretty cool, actually, on cloud security. And that includes identity and access management, secure cloud key management, network segmentation, securing your data, and mitigating risks from MSPs in the cloud. They definitely spent quite a bit of time putting this together. And so if any of these fall in your area of responsibility, then it's probably worth a little bit of time looking at this. Next, in the patches department, and this is unfortunately it's not that unusual, but Cisco patched bugs in 14 bugs actually, 10 of which can cause your device to crash. But more importantly, the most severe bugs allow unauthenticated and remote hackers to exploit your network. So if you run Cisco hardware, now would probably be a great time to start patching. In the legislative and legal activities department, Florida's governor, Mr. DeSantis, signed a bill, Florida House Bill 3, barring children under 14 from holding social media accounts and only allowing 14 and 15-year-olds to open accounts with the consent of their parents. Under the law, accounts already held by 14 or 15-year-olds must be erased unless a parent consents. And it also requires sexually explicit websites to verify users' ages to keep minors from accessing an adult site. Now, there's some problems with this law, and they're not the first state to go implement a law like this, all of which so far have been blocked by the courts. But The first problem is how does a social media site know what the person's age is? In many cases there's a box that says, put in your birth date. Well, you can put in anything, January 1st, 1912. There's no way for them to validate that. Now, if you want them to require that every single visitor authenticate themselves with a government-issued ID, that probably maybe has some First Amendment issues. And then with regard to 14 and 15-year-olds requiring parental consent, how do you know who the parent is of a 14 or 15-year-old? And on top of it, this law has a private right of action, which the governors of a couple of states seem to love when it can be used to their advantage. So, I think there's going to be some countersuits. I assume the courts will block these laws like they blocked the other laws. But, this is an election year grandstanding kind of thing more than actually trying to do anything. There's also a bill in Congress called the Kids Online Safety Act, KOSA, which would require children under 17 to get parental consent to use social media, and kids under 13 would be banned altogether. Again, unless you want the requirement that everybody who uses social media provides a government-issued ID, and there's no such thing as any kind of anonymous access to any kind of social media, and also to adult websites, and that you're okay with tracking whatever it is you do online, and those sites providing that to the government if the government asks. There's a can of worms here that I think Congress people may not want to be open. For example, there's a law which has been around for about 3 decades now called the Video Privacy Protection Act. I think it was implemented in the 1990s. And that was implemented after some enterprising folks started asking video stores, that was back when you rented videotapes, right? For the records of videos that Congress critters rented. That turned out to be extremely embarrassing to Congress people. And so magically they were able to pass a law pretty quickly after they got embarrassed. Well, think about this in today's day and age, all the things that government people go off and look at, some of which may not be great, but nonetheless, they probably don't want it to be public. And, if they make that the law and the courts uphold that as constitutional, then you got a situation where, there's no such thing as private browsing anymore. Next, in the legal department, crypto crook, I give him a new title, Sam Bankman-Fried, was sentenced this week to 25 years in the slammer. Couldn't happen to a nicer guy. He's the founder of the now bankrupt crypto exchange FTX and its trading firm partner Alameda Research. He was also sentenced to $11 billion in restitution, which to me seems like a pretty large number. The maximum sentence was 110 years, but this is probably enough to hopefully get some other crypto whizzes to take note and maybe change their tune unless they want to join Sam in the slammer. In the breaches department, this one's going to get sticky really quickly. Thousands of healthcare organizations have actually petitioned the federal government, Health and Human Services, to figure out who's going to have to notify millions of people, hundreds of millions of people, I don't know, about the Change Healthcare breach. The way the law is currently written, it is the provider's responsibility, what's called a covered entity, to notify people. Well, Change Healthcare says that they handle billions of transactions a year. And if you think about it, for any one individual, Change Healthcare may have records from any number of providers. I mean, how many doctors, for example, do you have that you have seen in the last N years, right? So if they have all those records and now those N doctors have to notify you of a breach, it's going to get really expensive really quickly. And whether or not they all get sued over it, I mean, it's gonna be ugly really quickly. The challenge also, and this is kind of a word to the wise, in terms of organizations who use third parties who are in the healthcare business. They are supposed to get a BAA, business associate agreement, with that provider to say what that provider's security practices are going to be. And part of that ought to be who's going to pay for and who's going to be responsible for dealing with breaches. My guess is that many doctors are not very good lawyers and either don't have a BAA at all, which actually is breaking the law, or does have a BAA, but the BAA does not say who's responsible for paying for and notifying people in case of a breach. So in a case here where you have billions, potentially, now we don't know yet, right? Billions of records potentially compromised and exposed, and they're representing, thousands or tens of thousands of organizations. This is going to get messy very quickly. So we will see what the feds decide to do and whether they even have the option. I mean, I don't think they have the option to go off and say, we're going to ignore the law in this particular case, because that would generate a whole bunch of lawsuits all by itself. But we'll see what they do. And in the meantime, if you are a covered entity, or for that matter, if you are a business associate of a covered entity, now would be a really good time to go look at your agreements and decide whether they meet your needs or not. If you need help with that, we'd be happy to assist you. Next, Panera Bread has joined the world of the hack. Not a big surprise. Even though their stores are still open, online ordering is down, their point of sale systems are down, their phones are down, and they're only accepting cash. The reward system isn't working. Panera says they are working to resolve a temporary outage. Yes, I am sure that's true. They are working. But don't try to call customer service to complain, because that's not working either. Next, and I'm not sure exactly how you pronounce this. It's either KU Coin or Qcoin. It's a crypto exchange. The exchange and its founders were indicted in the Southern District of New York, SDNY, my favorite federal prosecutor, who has been featured on many TV programs. And they are charging these guys with conspiracy to operate an unlicensed money transmitting business, which is what a crypto exchange is, a money transmitting business. And most of the crypto exchanges try to avoid being licensed because they know they will get shut down if they are licensed, and also violating the Bank Secrecy Act, which requires you to know your customer. The two of these folks are both, that they indicted, of the founders, are Chinese citizens. Their location, gee, what a surprise, is unknown. And so now you can add another risk to the crypto story, which is that you may put your money in a crypto exchange and, oh yeah, by the way, the hackers, the owners of the crypto exchange flee the country and take all your money with them. So we shall see if they ever catch these guys. A lot of folks are on the lam for a while, and then they make a mistake, including Sam Bankman-Fried and some other folks in the crypto business. So I wouldn't necessarily say that they're scot-free, but to them, I would say look over your shoulder, because people are watching. Next, two more municipalities got hit by ransomware attacks. One is Gilmore County, Georgia, population 30,000. I have a lot of sympathy for them. They don't have a lot of money or expertise. The other was Fort Worth, Texas, population 2.1 million for Tarrant County. So the challenge here is that for Fort Worth, both Dallas and Austin have been hit by a very similar attack over the last year. And also, Tarrant County itself has had multiple cyber attacks that they just recently released a report about. So obviously they're not learning from what they're doing wrong. But, what can you do here? Are you going to sue the government? People do that sometimes, and very occasionally it works, but for the most part, it really doesn't work. Next, according to reports, people are increasingly concerned about their personal data safety. According to Aleo, which is a privacy-oriented blockchain startup, they did a survey, and the concerns appear to be generational, but even within across the generations, the numbers are surprisingly high. The lowest generation that has any concern is Gen Z, and 68% of those experienced apprehension or expressed apprehension about the privacy of their data. On the other side of that coin was baby boomers, who topped the list at 85% being concerned. So, this all takes a long time to mature and stuff, but I think the word is out. If you have people's data, you really need to think about your privacy practices. Next, up until now, the longest undetected hacking operation I was aware of lasted about 12 years ago. It was a networking firm that ultimately went bankrupt and was sold for scrap. This one from China is 14 years at least. They say that it started at least as early as 2010. They've indicted 7 Chinese nationals. Of course, they can't find them yet. Again, look over your shoulder, fellas, because people are going to be watching. The attack was a very low-tech attack. It was just a phishing attack, but apparently the payload was very stealthy. And among the victims were the White House, journalists, academics, critical businesses, and a bunch of others. So we shall see what happens there, but word to the wise, the Chinese are pretty good at this, apparently. Next, 2024 may be even worse for cyber attacks than 2023. Some people have said, oh yeah, cyber attacks are going away. They're all last year. Well, apparently the numbers don't particularly agree with that. Threat intelligence firm Flashpoint says that there were 35% more breaches in 2023 over 2022, and that for the first 2 months, now granted 2 months doesn't give you a whole year, but for the first 2 months of 2024, that number is up 429% over the same period in 2023. So if you think that the bad guys have gone on vacation because they've stolen everything that there is to steal, I don't think that's the case. If that makes you nervous, please give us a call. And lastly, the Security News Bites. Mozilla had a deal with a company called OneRep that had the ability to go off and have you removed from tracking sites, people that are selling your data. Well, it turns out that the CEO of OneRep was running a lot of these sites very surreptitiously under different aliases in different countries and stuff. Mozilla eventually heard about this through the news, and they decided to part ways with the company, and not surprisingly, but nonetheless, in the meantime, I'm sure people spent money with these clowns, and all they did basically was take their money. And DoD has reiterated whistleblower rights in DoD contracts. There are some very explicit rights that people have to be whistleblowers, and they've told the contracting officers to make sure that particular DFARS clause is in every contract, and also to follow up and make sure people are actually implementing the requirements of that particular clause. Next, there's a new kind of insurance for your car. It has nothing to do with your car being stolen or getting in an accident. It is for the data from your car being stolen, being hacked. Munich Re, who is the largest reinsurance company, that's an insurance company that insures insurance companies, is offering that, and I'm guessing it's going to be a pretty popular option for insurance companies. And finally, the NIST-run vulnerability database, NVD, the National Vulnerability Database, may be in peril. And you say, so what? Well, it turns out that many of the very large security companies that check for new malicious stuff do that by scraping the NVD and adding that data, amongst other sources, but adding that data to their watch list so they can see if you're being attacked. Apparently, for the last several months, the NVD is not being updated with any great speed by NIST, and NIST has said stay tuned for something new and different, but they haven't said what or when. In the meantime, these various security companies that are kind of dependent on NIST to publish this data they're kind of running in the dark. Now, the very big guys that run their own data, well, maybe they're not as impacted. But the problem is, are the researchers who discover this data reporting it to all the individual security government? The answer is no, they're not. So, that's the problem. We shall see where it goes. And that's all I have for today. But until next time, stay safe. And obviously, if we can help you, we'd love to do that. Please reach out and talk to us. Take care.
Thank you for watching. For more information or to purchase this or any other of our board or executive services, visit us at cybersecurity.com. Call us at 303-887-5864 or email us at rh@cybersecurity.com. Goodbye.